Welcome again, everyone, to the ManDate. We're in the man cave. We're the guys on the corner. So this week we want to continue with what we were discussing last week. So this week we have with us Darrell Wilson, and in the spirit of the man cave, we try to keep it very informal. We don't want anyone to be intimidated, so we don't use titles. But we have a different mix with age, the age group. But just the interest of keeping everyone, to be genuine and transparent, we try to eliminate the titles as much as possible. So we don't mean any disrespect. If you're viewing this and you say, well, why are they not, so this is just for us to be totally transparent. So we have Darrell Wilson with us. And Darrell, could you please just introduce yourself and just say a little bit of some of your qualifications?
Sure.
Because I think it's poignant to what we're discussing today.
Absolutely. My name is Darrell Wilson. I'm a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. I moved to New York back in 1987. And since I've been here, I've worked with countless musicians in the music ministry. Currently, my wife and I and our son launched a ministry back in 2014 called 3D Ministries. And the 3D comes from Darrell, my wife Denise, and our son Darius, which is a creative arts ministry that consists of spoken word, song, liturgical dance, gospel rap, and also the component of premarital counseling, family counseling, and life coaching. As a profession, I'm also an administrator for the Department of Surgery at University Hospital of Brooklyn for about 27 years, working basically with medical students, third, fourth year medical students, residents, fellows, and the like. And I'm just honored to be here to share with you guys today.
So the man comes highly recommended, and he does a lot.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Michael Strahan. You have a million jobs. And so we have someone that's qualified. And so today, we just hope you enjoy the very frank discussion with a group of guys that's just hanging out on that corner. Okay, so today we're gaining the man cave part 2 of the discussion from last week. We decided to have a little bit of a different mix, so I just want to introduce everyone. Let's start with me. My name is Robert Paris. That's Elijah Simmons. That's Gary Coote, Donnell Lewis, Hudson Sanus, Noah Paris, and today we have our special guest, Darrell Wilson. So I just want to jump right into it, Darrell. So, last week we were discussing about, the impact the pandemic has had on us in terms of quarantine and the mental stress that we feel. So, just in your, opinion as far as how you're trained and when you train people, could you just give us just a brief, maybe 2 or 3, techniques that we could use to cope with, when you're stressed out, just some quick things that we could use to, catch ourselves before we go crazy.
Yeah, I would be glad to. It's funny that we're having this conversation on this particular topic because my wife and I, as counselors, one of the things that we do with couples is we do a lot of challenges. And in the beginning of this pandemic, one of the things that I said to my wife was that I said, this is going to be very, very challenging for a lot of households, for a lot of couples, for a lot of families. Why? Because now we're going to be in a place and in a space for a longer length of time together that we're not normal in doing. Because normally we would spend, let's say, 10 to 11 hours a day away from our homes because we're doing our jobs for 8 hours. And then when you look at the travel time to and from work, let's just round it off to like maybe 10 hours, 11 hours that you're away from home. Now, for those who are not still working during this pandemic and who are home all day, every day, now you're going to be more challenged with each other because now the test of communication is going to be the challenge for a lot of people, for a lot of couples, for a lot of families, because now you're not in a place that's comfortable for you, and especially for us as men, and especially as black men.
All right now.
We're challenged a lot of times with communicating. You know, not just talking, but what we talk about. And when it comes down to relationships, one of the challenges that I've found in dealing with couples and dealing with people, even if you're single, because our ministry is comprised of dealing with the whole family, and not just if you're married. We also deal with people who are single. And what I've also learned is that even though there are a lot of people who want to be in relationships, sometimes we have to be taught how to be in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, and when you look at it, our approach is always from not just a biblical perspective, but from a practical perspective. So we don't want to always continually kind of browbeat people with the Word of God, you know, even though what we talk about and how we approach is from a biblical perspective. Everybody's not there. So we don't want to lose them before we get them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we challenge them in different areas, because communication is major in all relationships, not just in husband-wife relationship, but it's also prevalent in father-son, mother-daughter, you know, father-daughter. You know, it's prevalent. It's something that is necessary for us to be able to build our relationships with each other. And I don't know, we automatically, mentally, when you mention the word relationship, most people always associate the word relationship with male-female. Mm-hmm. But we have relationships with lots of people. There's a lot of relationships in this room right now. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You have relationships with people on your jobs. Yeah. You know, you have relationships with family members, relatives, and so on and so forth. So it's not just male-female. You know, you have to also think about the relationships that you have with other people outside of the normal male-female relationships.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, so how do you cope with the stressors that you're feeling, you know, where you're in a relationship, you're around someone too long, and, you know, what are some of the things that you could do to just like quickly catch yourself whenever those, you know, last week we spoke about having triggers or, you know, certain things that set you off. What happens when you catch yourself, you know, those triggers going off and you find yourself going a little bit off?
Well, one of the things that I suggest in situations like that is deal with the trigger. Because triggers wouldn't exist if it wasn't a trigger.
Right.
So what happens is that oftentimes, especially in relationships, we know how to push each other's buttons.
Right.
When you talk about male-female relationships, if you've been with someone for a certain period of time, you kind of get to know what each other's triggers are. Mm-hmm. And when we get caught up in what I like to consider heated fellowship, we have a tendency to, with intent, push those buttons,
right?
Push those triggers,
right?
You know, but we don't ever deal with the trigger.
Okay.
We may know what it is, but we don't take the time to address it, to try to heal it, to try to recognize, and the first step is to admit that it is a trigger.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be able to admit that this is a trigger for me.
Okay.
Earlier there was you know, the mention of us as men being vulnerable, you know, and transparent. That's a struggle for a lot of us.
Right.
You know, as an individual, I can speak for myself and say that being vulnerable and being transparent is a strength for me. Because it leaves no room for the devil, to kind of creep in and kind of distract me from what's important, from what's necessary. I'm learning to live my life, with a purpose, on purpose.
So I'm trying to get some free psychology here, right? So psychologize me. I know I have triggers. I don't like a whole bunch of questions. I'm home or I'm getting all these questions. I realize, I'm starting to get a little edgy, What are some of the quick things that I could do to catch myself, to cope with what I'm dealing with? So you said something that was key. You deal with the triggers. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes you're already off kilter when the trigger, you detect the trigger or you're starting to go off. So what I'm trying to get from you is, what can I do now so it doesn't escalate? What can I do real quick? I realize I'm just losing it. What can I do real quick as a man, as a black man, to deal with what I'm feeling right now?
It starts in the mirror. It starts in the mirror.
Michael Jackson effect.
Man in the mirror.
All right.
It starts in the mirror. I don't know that there's a quick fix to it. There's a process to it. Because whatever that trigger is, didn't just happen overnight.
Right.
And whatever that trigger is, came from somewhere. And sometimes we have to go back in order for us to move forward. So we have to go back to find out, where did this come from? Because see, what happens is that without even thinking about it, there are characteristics about us that are inherited, that are genetic. From either our parents, maybe our grandparents, or maybe our great-grandparents. Certain behaviors that we have and that we exhibit, they came from somewhere. Did they come from mom's side of the family? Did they come from dad's side of the family? Where did they come from? But they came from somewhere. And sometimes we have to go back and have those conversations. Once again, there's that word, conversation, communication with mom and dad, or maybe our grandparents, to understand who we are. Because that's where a lot of us as men, especially black men, that's a place where we struggle in knowing who we are. In knowing who we are. It's a struggle for us because we don't want to take the time.
So looking for a quick fix is not going to work.
From my perspective, I don't think that there would be a quick fix to dealing with the trigger.
All right. Okay.
You have to put in the work, and you have to be willing to put in the work. One of the things that we don't do well as men is self-help.
Right.
We will go out of our way to make sure that everybody else around us is okay.
Stop talking about me.
But when it comes to us as individuals, we're always too busy.
Yeah.
We don't ever want to find the time to take care of us, or we'll blame it on, we won't go to counseling or a therapist because we don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking these questions right here.
I understand. I'm not mad at you. And I'm happy to share.
Yeah.
But it's for me it's paying it forward. It's paying it forward. What I talk about, the things that I know, I'm not talking about it just haphazardly. I'm talking about it out of my experience. Right. Out of things that I had to learn. Sometimes were very hard lessons from, you know, and being a PK, growing up in the church, you know, there came a point in time in my life where I resented the church, you know, because we were always at the church. You know, growing up as a kid, when most kids my age were looking at Saturday morning cartoons, me and my family, we were at the radio station singing every Saturday morning. Every Sunday, 3 services. And then after 3 services, we're on TV 26 on Sunday nights. That was my life. I'm the youngest of 6. I have 5 older brothers and a sister. There's 5 boys and 1 girl. I'm the baby boy. One of my brothers passed away a few years ago.
And you guys didn't think of starting Gospel Jackson 5?
Listen, we've traveled all over the place singing.
Yeah.
You know, our family had a name in the city of New Orleans.
Okay.
You know, in the city of New Orleans, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing a big poster of the Wilson family.
Right.
You know, on it. You know, and my dad, being a PK, you know, we traveled with my dad.
Right.
You know, when the church doors opened, we were there. I don't care if nobody else from the choir showed up, we were the choir.
Right.
My oldest brother was on the organ, my sister was on the piano, and when I became of age, I was able to get out of the choir, but I was on the drums.
Right.
Still a part of.
So, I've been in counseling before, you know. So, what I hear you saying is put in the work to deal with ourselves so that we can handle the trigger.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of work that's needs to be done behind the scenes.
Correct.
All right. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I want to leave it open for, you know, the guys that are here and some of the newbies. You know, they're young bucks. So you guys throw out the first question from the man here.
Yeah. So not just only are we dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, we're now dealing with the height of racism. So what are the 2 stressors that can come from that kind of complication now in the world?
We right there now. We all up in it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right.
But one of the things I said to a friend of mine not long ago, I said, I don't want to hear nobody tell me about singing "We Shall Overcome."
Right.
I said, because we've been singing that song all my life.
Decade.
I'm 60 years old. We were singing that song before I was born. And we've been singing it ever since. We shall overcome. We've been overcoming for over 60 years of my life. We're making progress now. And I said this to my wife not long ago. It is your generation that is going to change the atmosphere and what America is about. We talk about the judicial system. And we talk about the things, how we're treated as a people. You know, folk are always standing around talking about, you know, and standing on the Constitution. My personal belief is this. The judicial system and the Constitution is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's doing what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
The Constitution wasn't written with us in mind.
Exactly.
Because they didn't see us as being acceptable individuals or human beings.
They thought we would handle slavery after it would come about. It was talked about when the Constitution was being written, but they said that we don't have to handle it now, because if we try and handle it now, we'll never finish it, and we'll just fall back into King George's rule. So let's just handle it later. And it took over 100 years to actually get it to win they actually wanted.
Right.
A lot of the founding fathers, they wanted to give up their slaves. A lot of people say, no, they didn't. But no, it was true. Most of them did want to give up their slaves. Most of them lived in the North, didn't really care about it. There was not really much agriculture to do in the North. So they wanted to, but the tension in the room, they just had to get it done in time to get the separation from the bigger power.
And that's a part of what we see today, because people are afraid to speak out because it's more important to them to fit in.
Right.
You know, that's what we're seeing in our government today. That people, in the Republican Party, it's like nobody wants to go against anything Donald Trump, says or does, because they fear him. But they'll go and have these sidebar conversations about what he's doing, but they're afraid to open up their mouth to talk about, changing what America is. And it's like I said, it's going to be another process, but I really believe that you guys are going to be the catalyst for this change in America for your children. For your children. I think that most of these other guys here, I think that we've lived in an era of America, as bad as it was pretty good. In some sense. But I think it'll be a whole lot better for you guys if you guys continue to stand up in this process. It's, that there's a lot of healing,
Right.
that has to take place in the country. And there's a lot of healing that has to take place with us as individuals, because there's a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of pain, and it's not like it's going to just go away. It's not going to just go away because they're fighting to keep racism alive, So it's going to take a fight, and it's weird because it took somebody's death to give that life.
Right.
And even though there's been countless other black men and women who has died, at the hands of police officers over the years, this one man dying, it's like Jesus, it's this one man that died, it was like his life was the sacrifice that it took to catapult America into changing the mindset. Well, now you don't see just black folk out there talking about Black Lives Matter, but you see people from different nationalities marching with black people talking about Black Lives Matter. So I hope I answered.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
So Darren, I'm a father. I have a young son, 8 years old. With all of this that's going on in society, how do you approach your children and speak to them about what's going on and explain to them about racism and watching a video with a policeman with a knee on a man's neck? How do you sit there with your children and explain to them, listen, this isn't right, and explain to them what's going on here and the reason this is happening?
You have to take a very realistic approach. You don't sugarcoat it, but you want to explain it to them and not cheat them from the experience. Because we live in a society now where society dictates a lot of how we live. It dictates what our marriages should be, how our marriages should be. It has a lot of control over how we live in this country. we have to do what the educational system here in the U.S. has not done. And I don't, this pandemic, I think that this pandemic has been a major, major lesson for a lot of us, because what I think that it has done is that it has exposed a lot, and it's still exposing a lot. The last time we had a situation like this where we had to not leave our homes was in the biblical days, in the Bible, when they told everybody to stay home, and people were doors were being marked and so, so
You have to explain it to them.
depending on their ages, it would vary from age to age. You would have to explain it to them in a way that, for one,
They will be able
to relate.
and understand what you're saying, while at the same time empowering them to be who God has created
Get them to be. Because
One of the things
that I'm
very, very, I stand firmly on is that we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. And our kids have a tendency to, they pay more attention to what we do than what we say. They will listen to what you say, but they're going to watch what you do. And our son is 25. He said to us when he was in high school, to my wife and I, he said, "You guys always talk about how you did your best in raising me." He said, "So why is it that you don't trust what you're taught?"
Smart kid.
So Darryl, so based on the question that was asked, I remember looking at Instagram, and this was just like a week ago. Little boy was playing basketball in his driveway, and police car started coming down the block, and he ran behind the car and waited until the car passed. Then he came back out and started shooting again. Saw another video of a little girl, police woman was passing by, and she started weeping. Police officer came over, gave her a high five to assure her. So that's a hard reconcile to say, to tell them the truth. The fact is, you going out there and coming in encounter with a policeman, it could be your life. So obviously, those children were either astute enough to figure out what's going on, that they're in danger, and so they're hiding, or their parents were real enough to let them know what the encounter could be like. Right. So how do you now reconcile that reality without instilling this morbid fear in them that they don't even want to go outside, or that they see, this police passing by, oh my God, this could mean it. Because I'll be honest with you, I've been driving up the Taconic, 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m., I don't even remember the time, but it was pitch dark, and I was doing about 60. So speed limit of 55. Get pulled over, it's pitch dark. It's just me and the cop. And the first thing, and I'm a grown man, the first thing when the light came on, I said, oh my God, I don't know where this is going to go. It's just me and him on the street. So anything could happen. No witnesses. Thank God it worked in my favor because I'm here right now. Didn't even get a ticket. But I'm just saying, how do you reconcile that fear? What do you say to them that's constructive, that could make them live a life so that they're not running and hiding every time they see a cop?
There was a time when my son and I got pulled over. We were on our way home, right around the corner from where we live. And this street it's a funny street, but it has a little curve in it. You know, it's right by the back of Roy Wilkins Park. And when we were approaching the turn, I saw an unmarked car parked on the side. And I brought it to my son's attention. I said, those are cops, you know. And sure enough, as soon as I made the turn, there was the lights, you know, flashing, and I pulled right over, you know. I said, just keep your hands on your lap, you know. I said, I'll take care of it. And I put my car in park, turned my engine off, put my window down, and I sat with my hands on the steering wheel until they came. And when they came over to my window, you know, when he walked up, I said, hey, officer, how are you? You know, and he said, I'm fine. He said, where are you going? I said, oh, my son and I, we're going home. We live right around the corner. He said, let me see your license and registration. And so I gave him everything that he asked for, you know, and when I gave it to him, I put my hands back on the steering wheel, you know, and he looked at it, saw that my address was literally right around the corner, you know, and he said to me, okay, he looked down, you know, he looked at my son, and he said, okay, you guys have a nice day.
So before you guys go further, there's something, because a lot of times we get instructions about that, but I've seen a lot of videos with a lot of different reactions. I just want you to expound a little bit on tone, just for the edification of everyone here and everyone that's listening. Is tone important as far as when you're speaking to the officer? Because I've heard, you know, I've seen it escalate real fast based on reaction.
Absolutely. I think it is. And not only my tone, but my demeanor and my body language. You know, when he walked up to my car and to my window, I had a smile on my face. Hey, officer, how are you? I think that it would. I think, you know, my dad, my mom always taught us, you know, you kill a person with kindness. You know, and they say that it's nice to be nice.
Yeah, but
and niceness don't cost you anything. You know, so I'm not going to, because yes, we have a lot of bad police officers that's out here, but I'm not going to sit here and say all of them are. I have friends of mine who are police officers. You know, so I'm not going to make that judgment that I'm getting ready to be confronted by a bad police officer. But he's going to have to show me that he's a bad police officer, and in that process, I'm still going to smile.
But do you think you had to answer that question of where you're going? Where you're going? What does it matter? Why would you? I have a problem with just answering that question. I'm good with smiling, being cordial. How we doing, officer? I'm good with that. But the question of where are you going? What's the difference?
The difference is my life. That's the difference. I may not like the question. There's stuff that happens to me on my job that I don't like. I'm not going to quit. So I don't think that me challenging a simple question, because to me, that's a simple question. Where you going? I'm going home. I live right around the corner. I didn't have to tell him that either. But that's what I said.
But you can't appreciate that, you know, you were on the job all week, all day, so your guard is kind of down. And I know for me, I'll just be honest with you, I got RBF. So, you know, I'm sitting in the car, the cops stop me. I'm not thinking about smiling. I'm like, come on, this is nonsense. And unlike you, who, you know, saying, prove to me that you're a bad cop. If we're gonna sit here and be honest, I'll just be honest. I don't believe that there are any. You know, it's just my. And I have friends, and I know people that are.
Right.
And I'll just be honest with you. Even them, when they put the uniform on, I think that they become different people.
Right.
That's me. I think there's a component of being in that position that makes you behave a certain way.
I think-
and I'm not saying I'm right.
Right.
I'm just saying, so now my guard is down.
Right.
You pull me over.
Right.
You know, come on, I'm trying to get home. What is
Right.
this?
Right.
So it's very hard to smile, but you've made a very, very good point.
Right.
The difference is your life.
Right.
So yeah, and I appreciate that.
And not only that, it's like you said, you're trying to get home.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to do anything that's going to make it
long, yeah.
difficult for me to get home.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
not get home
Yeah.
ever again over a simple question.
Yeah.
Because guess what? When you work in, say for instance, the medical field, you're a doctor, you're a surgeon, you're a firefighter. You also a different person when you put on that uniform too. So I get the perspective that you're coming from, but listen, there's always a right way to handle wrong. And I also have to take into consideration the fact that my son is sitting next to me.
That actually is the question I wanted to ask. The state of mind of your son
Right.
after the encounter, how did he react? Did you have to have a talk with him? Or did you just let it go?
No. We had a conversation as soon as we pulled off.
And
As soon as we pulled off, we had a conversation.
and how that
And
conversation?
I asked him that question. I said, so how do you feel right now? He said, I'm okay. He said, you did good. That's what he said.
Okay.
He said, you did good, Dad.
Because as a man of color, for me, it's like let's say when we get pulled over, like when I get pulled over or so forth, I have that fear, and then with me, if I have my kids with me, it makes it even more so. Because I've seen where you do all the right thing, have a smile on your face, you even identify, and you still don't make it home.
I get it.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. Like the fear is very real. So
No,
when-
it is.
When someone's in that position, when you're scared or you're not in a normal state of mind, you can do and say anything. Some people handle fear differently. Some people get hostile, some people get timid, know that. So for you to say, oh, I'm smiling, that's because you are who you are. You're strong enough to understand and to know that, all right, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to handle it. Somebody who's not like that is going to have their hands on the wheel shaking, and the cop is going to be like, yo, what's going on? Or somebody's going to get hostile, like, why are you pulling me over? Like, I don't want to die tonight.
Right.
Whenever it is.
Right.
So the fear is very real, and I feel like it goes higher than just the fear that is there. The police have to be reformed.
I don't disagree with that. Listen, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Everybody has a different perspective, and everybody will handle certain situations in a different way. It depends on who you are. It depends on the individual. It depends on the cop and how you interact with that cop. Because a lot of them, all they need is a reason.
Exactly. About self-control.
All they need is a reason. My perspective is, I'm not gonna give you one. I may walk away from it feeling a little humiliated, but I'm walking away with my life. I'm walking away with my life. So, you decide. You know,
That's-
I
I think
mean,
it's a little different if you're by yourself. To be honest with you, if I had my young son with me and I have a cop who's acting aggressive with me, asking me questions that I don't think he needs to ask me, well, I don't think I need to answer those questions. I didn't do anything wrong.
right.
If I did get pulled over and I have my young son with me and he sees that, to be honest with you, I would feel away. I would feel away. Like if a cop is talking to me in a condescending manner, asking me questions like where you're going and where you're coming from, and I know I didn't do anything wrong. To be honest with you, I think I would stop. So is there a reason why you stopped?
Right.
So just to add some clarity to that, so you're feeling what? Emasculated because
Definitely.
your son
So
is
my
there,
son,
he's
yes,
seeing you
yes.
subordinate to someone else.
Yes.
And that is a huge point where you're feeling emasculated. And I'm not saying
No.
that, I'm not trying to belabor the point.
Right.
I'm just saying, to what Elijah said,
Right.
it's hard to try to, but I love the point you made that at the end of the day, I might feel like I'm
Yeah.
one nut short, but I'm leaving with my life.
Listen, the atmosphere is real. Okay, the atmosphere is real. The scenario you just gave was that if he comes to me and he's talking to me in a condescending way, what if he's not?
If he's not having a problem answering
Then
this
what?
question.
So, and see that's my point, because the thing is, if I won't know whether or not he's going to speak to me condescending or not until he speaks to me. So I'm not going to, in my head, be in his head.
No, I'm talking about just reacting to what he's saying.
Right. There's reaction and then there's responding. We can react
Okay.
or we can respond.
But
Those are our choices.
kind of want to touch on what you're saying. Is like there's a lot of stuff that we accept, in like in society, even as man as color. When I get pulled over, anyone get pulled over, we just automatically we compromise all the time. And I'm thinking, like, based on all this stuff that's going on now, it's like now you're seeing that there's a different layer to it. It's like if I'm white and I get pulled over, I don't get the same, they get a different treatment. And now I get pulled over for a traffic stop, I'm on the ground, or I could be arrested, even killed. And
Automatically look at it
yeah,
as a purpose.
so for me, I'm trying to, like, I'm processing to myself, is like, why am I not proven innocent until proven guilty, like the privilege that they get? How come I don't allotted that decision? And I've been compromising for a long time.
Well, I understand, and I agree with you. I do. I agree with you wholeheartedly. But one of the things that I know about us as a people, we've been a very tolerant people. Ever since we've come to this country, we've been tolerant and accepting of things that we shouldn't be accepting of.
I saw a video.
I'm sorry.
No, I saw a video. This girl was like, we've been this and this and this has happened to us and this has
I
happened
agree.
to
I
us.
saw that
and
video also.
All we're asking for is equality. We're not retaliating.
Right.
Granted, the riots and everything is a part of that was an
acting out.
escalated thing, but all we're asking for is equality. We're not asking to make any drastic changes. We're asking for our basic right that was written into the Constitution. Yes, it was not specifically written for us, but we are still people. We are still under that right. We're just asking for equality. So I believe that in our generation, like, we have taken lots of strides, and I understand, because I see it on social media, because I'm heavily into social media. I see the strides that we have made.
Right.
And people that are supporting us, and that we can make a change and make a big change very, very soon. But I think it's not more us. I think it's more we're trying to open the light to the older generation to see, like, what you did was wrong.
Right.
And that there are ways to move forward and be equal and have this harmony together
Correct.
as a human race.
Right. And I will go as far as to say the light is on. The light is on because it's shifting in a lot of different instances, especially when it comes down to law enforcement. And the changes that's being made as far as policing is concerned. Listen, I'm not sitting here trying to defend the behavior of rogue cops. I'm not. I'm just as black as anybody in this room. My life matters. Your lives matter. But if someone asks me a question in a uniform and a badge that I may not like, do I want to be combative with somebody who I know has a reputation of not caring about who I am, whether I live or not? Am I going to be any less of a man to answer his question, even though I may not like it? I'm not just thinking about me. I have a wife and a son at home. I want to go back to them in peace, not in pieces.
Yeah, I just have I know it's necessary to talk about racism, and, it gets me angry when I have to prove, especially I had an experience on the job that this person wasn't, they were Hispanic, they weren't white. And he was saying that, I don't understand why, this thing, Black Lives Matter. So I had to prove to him that we are experiencing racism. We have to prove to them that we are not, all the black folks that are running around out there are not doing illegal stuff. We are trying to live our lives.
Right.
We go to work, we pay our bills, we pay taxes like everybody else.
Right.
Why they treat us differently?
Right.
And that gets me angry. And sometimes, I try to explain to my kids, and I feel flustered. Sometimes I can't find the words to describe.
That's really
But
difficult.
yeah, and I find it that, even the word minority, why they, it's like an attack on us. We are just trying to live our lives. Why do we get treated that way?
I think I'm giving you my own personal opinion right now. I think a large part of the reason why this has happened and it's happened for so long is because they fear us.
Yeah, but
I believe they fear us.
so you raise a good point, because I've heard racism, described from many different angles. So they fear us. We're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to make them subordinate. Just like they said, we just want equality.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's all we want. So
Right.
we're not trying to rise above and take over. So, in your opinion, try to make some sense to us about why they would feel like, besides fear, because I don't see what they really have to fear. What it is about us, why you feel like you have to stop us or try to break off our lineage, stop our lineage. What it is about us that's so intimidating.
Original man.
Protecting that woman.
We are
Honestly, that's the other thing.
the original man.
Yeah. Yep.
Scripture talks about hair like lamb's wool,
Yeah.
feet like burnished brass. That don't describe Michelangelo. Picture that we've been seeing all our lives of what they say Jesus looks like. We are a great people. Greatness is not something that we do. Greatness is who we are.
Right.
It's who we are. They have enjoyed everything that we've done for this country.
400 years.
They will not acknowledge our contribution to this country.
That's for sure.
They won't acknowledge it. If you were a football player, I'm a football player. You're a safety. I'm a wide receiver. We going one-on-one. Some of those battles, I'm going to win. Some of those battles, you're going to win. And when we walk off the field or we see each other on the street, it's going to be, yo, what's up? That's because we're secure in what we do and who we are. But when you're not secure in who you are, then what do? Anybody that you feel is a threat to you, you put your foot and your knee on their necks. And you do everything that you possibly can to keep them down, to keep them from rising up. And we've experienced that forever. We're still experiencing it. We're still experiencing it. All we want, yeah, we just want equal rights. We don't want to listen, y'all, we don't bother y'all. We don't bother y'all. But there's something in you that makes you feel like, because you have a badge and a gun, let somebody catch you, one of us catch you in the alley without your badge and without your gun. Let's see how hard you are. The cop that shot and killed that other black kid who's in jail now is asking to make sure he don't want no blacks
Guys on the floor. Yeah.
on the floor in the jail
Yeah.
looking after him.
Not
Why,
even
bro?
guards.
You was on the street. You was hard. You was hard as nails with your gun and your badge. What happened?
Yeah.
See, because the gun and the badge is their courage.
And it's so easy to obtain the gun in the badge. There's a statistic showing training and funding for the police. You only need 180 hours to become a police officer to have access to those high caliber weapons, to that riot gear. And also, Joe Rogan was talking on his podcast saying, as a soldier, as a United States soldier, you cannot legally shoot the enemy without an order. If I see you and you're from another country, even if we're enemies, I cannot shoot you unless somebody tells me to shoot you.
Right.
Yeah, stand
And
down.
as a soldier, and I have to stay calm in that
Right.
situation.
Right.
As a police officer, you feel a threat.
Right.
And your first thing is to pull the trigger.
Right.
Really?
Right.
So I think that why racism has continued to this day was one, miseducation on the behalf of our whole country. As of right now, our country is like 30th in education across the world. There's 196 countries and we're 30th. That's very bad. And we're one of the biggest first world countries. Two, it's the training and educating of the cops as well.
Right.
You have the same type of ability as a soldier. Why are you trained different from a soldier?
Right.
Most soldiers come back and become police officers, and they are upstanding police officers. Why should your first instinct be to pull the trigger when you feel fear? You should have different ways of handling what it is. A gun should be the last resort.
Right.
And even if you're going to pull your gun, I still don't believe you should shoot to kill.
Yeah,
Right.
amen. All
You
right
can shoot
now.
the disabled, shoot in the leg, shoot in the arm, something.
Yeah.
And you get training to be accurate enough to make those shots.
But even when you see it on TV, when you see police officers at, say, for instance, a shooting range, at that shooting range, they're shooting at a target, right? That target is from here up.
Yeah.
So they're taught
Yeah.
To
shoot to kill,
Yeah.
not to wound, not to slow a person down, shoot to kill.
Well, the vital organs are above the waist.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trained to shoot at. It's from here up.
I
Which
hate
is-
to interrupt you guys. This is heavy, and we have gotten into some we in the weeds now, and this is heavy stuff.
Amen.
We just want to pause here because the last video was a little bit long, and we just want to make sure that we keep people focused. We want to pause here and continue with this part 2 to part 2B, and next week we'll talk about part 2B. I just want to put out one disclaimer. We're not here saying that we have all the answers. All it is we're trying to convey what the vast majority of us black men feel, men of color, however way you want to say it. It's how we feel, but we just want everybody to know out there that we know how you feel. Next week we'll talk about, some of the constructive things that we can do as it pertains to the situation that we're in. All right, so we want to pause here, and then we continue next week.